Medical insurance can sometimes feel like you're trying to read a foreign language, right? It's just full of all this jargon and these complicated rules, but it really doesn't have to be that way. Over the next few minutes, we're going to cut through all that noise and get straight to what matters so you can finally understand what your coverage actually means.
I mean, it's a terrifying thought, isn't it? One single accident, one serious illness, and you could be looking at truly catastrophic costs. Now, we all know the answer is insurance, but how does it really work? How does that piece of paper actually shield you from financial ruin? Let's break it all down.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the why insurance even exists. Then, we'll dive into the two fundamental types of coverage out there. And finally, we'll see how those big ideas shape the actual plans you might have today.
First things first, why do we even need this stuff? Well, it all boils down to one simple and, yes, sometimes painful reality. Medical care is incredibly expensive.
All right, so if there's one thing you take away from this, let it be this. Medical insurance isn't really about health, it's about financial protection. Its entire reason for being is to act as a shield, standing between your life savings and the massive bills that can pop up when you get sick or hurt. It is all about managing financial risk, period.
Okay, to really get a handle on your options, it helps to know that, historically, all coverage kind of falls into two different worlds, basic and major medical. The best way to think about them is like two different tools for two very different jobs.
And this slide lays out the difference perfectly. On one side, you've got your basic plans. Notice that? They rarely have a deductible, but they only cover a very specific, limited list of things. So, as you can see, they're really best for those routine, predictable costs. Then on the other side, you've got major medical. These almost always have a deductible, but in exchange, they cover a huge range of care. That makes them absolutely essential for those big, catastrophic events.
And honestly, this is the absolute best way to think about it. Basic coverage, that's your first aid kit. It's great for the predictable scrapes, the smaller issues. Major medical, that's the full-blown emergency room, there to handle the massive, unexpected disasters.
So let's start with that first aid kit. We're going to take a closer look at basic insurance, which you'll often hear called a first dollar plan, and there's a really good reason for that.
And that's literally where the name comes from. Because there's no deductible you have to pay first, the insurance company starts paying from the very first dollar you spend on something that's covered. It makes things super straightforward for those smaller, routine costs.
Now, these basic plans are usually broken down into three main buckets of coverage. You might buy them separately, or they might be bundled together: hospital, surgical, and physician expenses.
So the first piece, hospital expense, is all about the building itself. And this is a really key distinction. This covers the things, the room, the supplies, the lab work, but it does not cover the surgeons or the doctor's fees. We'll get to them in just a second. So how do these things actually pay out? Well, there are basically two ways. An indemnity plan pays you a flat, fixed amount per day, say $200, no matter what the hospital actually charges. A reimbursement plan, on the other hand, pays a percentage of the real charges up to whatever limit is in your policy.
Let's make this super concrete with that indemnity model. Let's say your plan pays a fixed $200 a day, but your room actually costs $400. Well, you're on the hook for that $200 difference. It's predictable, for sure, but it might not cover the whole bill.
All right, next piece of the puzzle is surgical expense coverage. This is the part of the basic plan that pays the actual people involved in a surgery. The surgeon and the anesthesiologist.
So how do they even decide what to pay a surgeon? There are three main ways. The simplest is a surgical schedule. It's basically just a price list with a fixed dollar amount for every single procedure. A more flexible way is the relative value scale, where each surgery gets a certain number of points and the insurance company sets a dollar value per point. That makes it way easier to update for inflation. And finally, the most common method today is UCR, which stands for usual, customary, and reasonable. That just means the plan pays based on what's considered the going rate for that surgery in your specific area.
And the final piece of our basic puzzle is physician expense. This covers everything else your doctor does that isn't surgery. We're talking routine office visits or consultations in the hospital. Basically, this is your everyday doctor care.
Okay, so we've covered the first aid kit. Now let's talk about the emergency room, the major medical shield, which is designed for one thing and one thing only, to protect you from financial catastrophe.
Right, so major medical plans, they flip the script entirely. You have to pay a deductible first, absolutely, but in exchange for that, you get incredibly broad protection. And here's the key difference. Instead of having a long list of what is covered, they have a very short list of what isn't.
The whole philosophy is, if it's medically necessary and it's not on that short exclusion list, it's covered. Simple as that.
So what kind of stuff gets excluded? Well, usually it's things like elective cosmetic surgery or injuries that happen on the job, mainly because that's what workers' compensation is for.
Okay, so we've got these two big ideas, right? The first aid kit and the emergency room. But you're probably wondering, what does any of this history have to do with my plan today? This is where it all clicks together. That whole emergency room concept, the major medical insurance, is the direct ancestor of the most common plans people have today, high-deductible health plans, or HDHPs. The structure is pretty much identical. You cover the smaller costs yourself up to a deductible, and then that giant insurance shield kicks in for the really big, catastrophic stuff. And to help you pay for those smaller costs, these plans are often paired with an amazing tool, a health savings account, or HSA, which is a tax-free savings account just for medical expenses.
And that really leaves us with one final, and I think, most important question for you. When you look at your own policy, what do you see? Is it a first aid kit, a full emergency room, or maybe some combination of both? Answering that question is the absolute first step to truly mastering your own coverage.